Happy Friday. Welcome back to Giants Latest. Giants fans, I got some disappointing news for you. Joe Milton is officially out of the equation for a potential backup or option at all for the Giants because the Patriots traded him to the Cowboys. Yes, those Cowboys. So the only thing that would have been worse is if he went to the Eagles. So that's great for us. But, I thought something that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to talk about in regards to this trade, because I know, a lot of us Giants fans have felt like, all right, let's bring in Joe Milton. Let's just see what he can do, right? Him and Tommy DeVito can battle it out for the third string. So exciting. But I saw a couple things that made me think this is a very interesting thought is maybe the reason why the Patriots traded him, because remember, they brought in Josh Dobbs to be the backup for Drake May. So maybe the reason why they are trading Joe Milton is because they've seen all that they needed to see, and he is not a guy that they think is capable of being a backup. So that could be a potential option, right? Because if he was that good, why wouldn't the Patriots have kept him? Why couldn't he be the backup? Why bother bringing in Josh Dobbs? Yes, you have a young quarterback room, but you have Mike Vrabel and you have a lot of other good talent and coaches in the building. So anyway, interesting. Maybe that'll make anyone feel better about the fact that Joe Milton is off the table for the Giants. Just wanted to throw that out there. But lucky for us, the draft is coming and we have a lot of draft picks. So there's bound to be some other quarterback in the building. Speaking of, Brian Daboll, who spoke to the media earlier this week during the owners' meetings, has said that he doesn't really love pro days. He actually prefers private workouts and more one-on-one scenarios, especially with the quarterbacks, because it really gives him the opportunity to sit down and get to know them better and talk through all sorts of things. And I actually just spoke to Jordan Raanan, which we'll get more into next week, but he said, which I thought was interesting, that Daboll is all over the communication with these quarterbacks, all of them. He texts them, asks them questions, very involved with all the different quarterbacks. So I like that. Sounds like, he's taking advantage of getting to know these guys in the few short weeks that they have to figure out if this guy can be a franchise option for the Giants. So it was known that he was not going to go to Colorado for the pro day. The Giants have a ton of other players going, or people in the building. They have the head coach, assistant head coach. There is a whole list of Giants personnel that are going. And I actually want to read it to you because it is extensive. And I was like, wow, this is a lot. Okay. Head coach, general manager, assistant GM, director of pro personnel, assistant director of pro personnel, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterback coach, defensive backs coach, wide receiver coach, assistant quarterback coach, area scout, and Jesse Armstead, who is a former player for the Giants who now helps out from a coaching perspective. Now, they're not all there to see Shedeur Sanders. Travis Hunter is obviously there. Shedur's brother is a defensive player, I believe, who is going to be coming out in this draft. And I think there's about 3 or 4 other potential good options in first, second, third round coming out of Colorado. So we know that all the work that they're doing is not just for Shedeur Sanders. But I just wanted to point this out because I thought it was really interesting, because Daboll went on and on about, how pro days aren't really his thing. And then all of a sudden he's going to Colorado for the pro day. So the pro day is happening this Friday. We're going to recap it on Monday. So make sure you hit subscribe and stay tuned for that, because that's coming. But in the meantime, I want to talk about the Giants pro day, because they do this every year. And what they do is they host a pro day for local players who went to Rutgers or some other teams in the area. So I'll give you guys just a quick rundown of the players and a little bit about them. So let's start with Kyle Monange. I don't think I pronounced that right. He's a running back from Rutgers. He rushed for more than 1,200 yards each of the past 2 seasons. And for us Giants fans who know and familiar with Giants running backs, he gives off Ahmad Bradshaw vibes, which I think all of us would enjoy. Another familiar name to all of us Giants fans, of course, is Howard Cross's son. Howard Cross is the third, who's a defensive lineman / fullback out of Notre Dame. He played in 66 games over 6 seasons for the Irish and had 22 career sacks. He was a star at St. Joseph's in Montvale. And of course, we all know his father, Howard Cross, as being a Super Bowl champion and now in the building for the Giants. So keep your eyes peeled on his name throughout the draft process, because I wouldn't be surprised if, of course, with those relations, if we see a Howard Cross III signing. Next up is Christian Dremel, a wide receiver from Rutgers, 5'9", 180, slot receiver, former Don Bosco star. All of us Northern New Jersey people are very familiar with Don Bosco. If you know of The Sims as well, you know of Don Bosco and the surrounding schools. So he also has experience in the return game. So obviously younger guy, smaller guy, and more of a slot guy. But, as we have talked about extensively at this point, something that the Giants have really focused on is special teams. So it doesn't surprise me that they are bringing in a slot wide receiver like Cole Beasley, who can also play on special teams. So very interesting. Holland Pierce is an offensive lineman from Rutgers. Ideal combination of size and length. He's 6'8", 344 pounds. The most appealing aspect of his game is the way he has rapidly improved throughout his career with Rutgers. He's yet to hit his ceiling. And as we all know and feel about offensive linemen, I think the more the merrier. Robert Longerbeam is a defensive back from Rutgers, played boundary corner with the Scarlet Knights, but he can also play inside. He ran a 4.39 at the combine. Next up, Tyreen Powell, linebacker also from Rutgers. Playmaker, he's an off-the-ball linebacker with good size, so he's well over 6 feet, 6'4", 240. Projects to compete as a special teams contributor with the chance to develop. We know how the Giants feel about special teamers. Brian Ogwu is an outside linebacker from Miami of Ohio, not University of Miami. From New Jersey, began his college career at Rutgers and ended up transferring to Miami. He racked up 20 and a half sacks in 3 years. And then the last one that we have here is Amin Vanover, defensive lineman / edge from Penn State. Former St. Joseph, Montvale, Northern New Jersey guy, and Newark native, was productive in a rotation behind Abdul Carter, a guy that we're going to talk about in 30 seconds. He was a late entry after his appeal for a 6th year of eligibility was denied by the NCAA. So some options there that are being brought in at the Giants. We will see if they end up bringing in any of these guys. And, likely when it comes to these type of players, these are like the Tommy DeVitos of the world, right? Most likely to be a depth type of signing or a Tomon Fox, that type of thing. But we will see if the Giants end up signing any of them. So speaking of Abdul Carter, I have seen some mocks that are having him go to number 3 at the Giants, and that is my best case scenario. I do like Shedeur Sanders. I do think that he would be a good fit for the Giants. I just think that the Giants are in a position to go best player available at 3. I think that they're in a position, because they have 2 veteran quarterbacks, they don't have to force Shedeur Sanders if it happens that he is not their guy or they don't think he's worth the value at the 3rd overall pick. And, I just think Abdul Carter, our pass rush, needs to be a focal point and one of the better pieces of the defense this year. And it came on strong a little bit last year and then kind of fell off. And I just think that there's a lot of good things about Abdul Carter. One of the things that I love is, Joe Shane, it could make you a little bit of a hero to Giants fans, because we all know the Micah Parsons story. And it tortures us twice a year, every year, and then some. And, if there's any chance that Abdul Carter can be remotely close to Micah Parsons, you don't not take him, you just don't. You build through the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line. Abdul Carter could be the guy. So anyway, I would love him at 3. He is my personal first choice, but if it doesn't work out, I'm on board with Travis Hunter, assuming that Brian Daboll can get it right for him. And if he doesn't, he'll get fired, and then the new head coach will hopefully make the most of Travis Hunter. See you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. We'll be back to talk Colorado Pro Day and more.